Yeah, that's great.
Well, welcome everybody. As Sean said, I know that there are plenty of other things that you can be doing on a Wednesday night besides sitting here with us, but we're really, really grateful that you're here. So Rebecca and I drove down from the Bay Area today. I live in San Francisco, Rebecca lives in Marin County in Mill Valley, and we are a group of three moms who have a very teeny tiny organization called ScreenSense. We have a website, we'll tell you more about it, but what we do is we go to schools and talk with parents about these tech topics that are front and center for all of us. I have two teenage boys, I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. Rebecca also has two teenagers, and so we are in the muck of this all the time. That's actually what brought us together was really trying to figure out how to parent this technology without guidance or resources from anybody else. The reason we're here tonight is because my brother, who did go to PG Middle School, was here in the fall with his family, and he was at the farmers market downtown Pacific Grove and ran into Keelan. She had a table of her smart 3 kids Monterey, and she was talking, and he had his 2 girls with her, and he said, wait a minute, my sister's doing this in the Bay Area. So he brought me the flyer and said, why don't you call her? And so the next day I emailed Caitlin and I was like, hey, I love that you're doing this. I grew up in Pacific Grove. What are you doing? And we started talking and I said, would you like it if we came down and did a presentation? We usually charge schools for this, but I would love to come home and do this. So we're doing it here today and tomorrow at Robert Down. So Sean said yes. And that's why we're here. So a quick little show of hands. I know that this can feel uncomfortable, but one of the things that we want to do when we're talking about technology is to get really transparent and kind of leave guilt and shame and decisions that we aren't so happy with or decisions that we're really confused about at the door. So for those of you who want to answer, how many of your children have access to one of these 4 apps or multiple ones? Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, or Discord? Show of hands. How many of you yourselves use one of those 4 apps? Okay, super. How many of you are thinking about saying yes to your student or child who has one or wants one of those apps? 2 of you. Okay, and everyone is sort of, yeah. And everyone has middle school age children. How about anyone with younger kids? Like K through 3rd? And how about high schoolers? How about babies 0 to 5? Okay, great. We got it. So we often have this at our parent ed events, is that we have a whole kind of the whole spectrum of where parents land. Wherever you are on this, we're with you. We are doing this with you. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing that you've done wrong. There's nothing that you're gonna do wrong. This is a messy, sticky, confusing topic. The way that we get through it is to start talking to each other, which is why we're here. So I just told you a little bit about ScreenSense. Our version of what Keelan and Lauren are putting together here on the Monterey Peninsula is called Kids IRL. And if you didn't know that what Keelan and Lauren and all the parents have put together is that they are part of a huge momentum across the United States and across the universe, actually, on the planet, of getting parents together who are saying, no, I don't want this, or no, I'd like to do this differently. How many of you saw that there were lawsuits that kind of, the lawsuits that came in California and Arizona? So it's happening at all different kinds of levels. Awareness around tech use for kids and what Caitlin and Lauren are doing is a little part of that. So childhood today. This is sort of what any kind of environment or situation where we see young people today looks like. Looks like during school, at the bus stop, play date. I don't know if you've noticed that when you drive around before school or after school, inevitably you're seeing the heads down, walking around, glued to a device. It's happening in all communities. Doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what job you have, what kind of parenting style you have. This is impacting all parents. And we talk with parents. They say the number one frustration and challenge that they have at home is around technology. 0 to 18. And the reason we're all kind of pulling our hair out about it is because it's really hard to fight technology. It's really hard to be the voice against something that is designed to be sticky, that's designed to be enticing, and that is really exciting and that we've normalized giving to kids. So we're here tonight to talk specifically about these 4 apps. We're not talking about smartphones in general. We're just talking about the content and the apps that we kind of have outlined. There are more apps than this, but these are the 4 apps that are sort of at the top of the list of what kids are wanting or what kids have. I don't know the data of sort of the kids at middle school in terms of usage and who's on it, but across the board, these are the 4 that kids are using. Basically, it's TikTok, which is an app where there's an endless scroll of short form content. Probably heard of TikTok challenges, you've heard of things that kids are doing over, and they can be really fun, but it's the idea that you're watching other people's content or creating it, and it's got this sort of like endless scroll that it just never stops. Then there's Instagram, which is also the endless scroll of constant content. But there is also a social connection to it. And that's one of the challenges of social media is the social allure of all of these. And then Snapchat and Discord we kind of have together because they have a function of communication. So for many of you might not know, but at one point Snapchat becomes about teenagers text with each other. Regular texting is just like 1980s. You don't do that anymore. You do it over Snapchat. Yeah, so I get that all the time that I'm just not cool because I don't do Snapchat, but no one over 40 does Snapchat. And then Discord is a platform that is mostly used by gamers, so kids that are video gaming to chat with each other. But that has a social media component to it as well. And then when we gave this talk 2 years ago, or even a year ago, we didn't include YouTube because YouTube is not a normal social media company. But YouTube Shorts, which is a component of YouTube, is basically TikTok. So if your child or student has access to YouTube, which most of them do on any browser, they have access to something called YouTube Shorts. The content creators of TikTok, even Instagram are cross-posting content. So what you're watching on YouTube Shorts is exactly what's on TikTok. And YouTube Shorts is available everywhere. And it's really problematic because there's no way to turn it off. Although
all of these companies are introducing kid features like parental controls, and because in response to the lawsuits that have come up. And the issue with their parental controls is that they're not really functional in the sense that it's extremely easy for kids to get around. There's no age gating at all. You do not verify by age. So if you have an account set up for your kid, that's a kid account, they can simply create another account. All they need is an email address, right? And it's so easy to get new email addresses. And so they're effectively useless parental controls for kids that are savvy enough to just create a new account.
And I think most kids are savvy enough and definitely savvier than we are. So, next slide. So the reason that we're here talking is that we really want parents to start thinking about social media in a different way than we've kind of talked about other content. There's a lot of conversation around devices and screen time and amount of time on the screens, but we don't talk enough about the content that they're being exposed to. And the issue with social media is that it's basically like an iceberg, that most parents, lawmakers, educators, adults kind of see what's above the waterline. And the issue is what's below the waterline. And what's below the waterline is something that most parents have no access to because they've never seen it. Especially if you have kids that don't have access to social media or you don't have older kids yet, you have no idea what kind of content they're seeing because it is not anything like the content that you are getting on Instagram or TikTok or even if you're on Snapchat. And so what we're going to do today is expose a little bit of what's under the surface.
That's very correct. So So it kind of starts like this, right? Your kids have some interest, they've got cute little things that they like to do. You're like, oh, you can follow that character on Instagram, have fun, this is cute. And then like over time, they get comfortable using it, they get curious, the algorithm starts trying out different things for them, and then it sort of starts to evolve. And you've got, this is an example of commercialism, a lot of commercialism, right? Just trying to push as much consumerism into your kids' faces as possible. And that's where we get like the Sephora craze that was happening a year ago, where you've got 11-year-olds spending hundreds of dollars at Sephora for their beauty routine. And Mr. Beast has like an energy drink that he sells. Your teen boy finds out about it and really needs to go hunt it down. Or Prime. Prime was a whole craze recently when our kids were in middle school. And so that's one tier of what you start seeing happening for your kids. And then the next tier, it gets worse, right? And if you're not paying attention, these things happen really quickly for kids. They start being fed, and it's a known thing. This was in one of the lawsuits, the eating disorder content. These teen girls are being targeted for eating disorder content on multiple platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts all being primary ones. And then you have for boys, boys really are actually, we're seeing boys having eating disorder issues are increasing for boys because of the image focus that they're seeing and their, this desire to be fitting some physical, ideal that they're being served online. And also the content is really sort of educating them on how to do that, right? In the guise' health. But it's making these teenage boys really start focusing on things that are unrealistic for them. And all of this, all of this is accessible to kids with access to the internet, right? I mean, they just have access to a browser, they can get on social media. And so I'm going to talk about the algorithm and AI, right? So AI is a really broad thing, and I'm not sure, how much exposure you all have to this, but I'll just say, AI is behind everything that we're doing right now. It's driving any kind of interaction that we're having with apps. And then there's chatbots, which is one version of AI, and chatbots are integrated into all of the social media apps pretty much. Maybe not YouTube, but I know Google has something, so it's in there. And the algorithmic driver of the content is really what's problematic for these apps, right? So the apps have an algorithm that is effectively learning what the user, any user, is doing as they're interacting with the app. And the app, so it's not just like if you like something, it's going to be more of it. It's also if you pause and just sit and look at something. If you read the comments, if you forward it to somebody. So it's really, even when you're disturbed, right? Like we all feel disturbed. We look at a car accident, even though we maybe don't want to or don't mean to. You can imagine for kids, right? They're going to pause and look at something that's disturbing or unexpected in their feed. And then the feed goes, okay, I'll try giving you more of that. And that's how these kind of silos start happening around eating disorder content, that kind of thing, because the kids pause on it, the algorithm learns that's working, the algorithm wants to keep them on the app. That is the only driver for these apps. They want to keep eyeballs on. They want to keep the kid active, or anybody, by the way, not just the kid, active on the apps so that they can make money. Okay, we got to keep that in mind when we're putting this in our kids' hands. Like, it's just driving money for that company. And so, we're going to look at each. Sorry, that was supposed to reveal on click. We're going to look at each of these. So, no, I know it's just not working. I don't. So we're going to look at each of these platforms and just talk a little bit about how kids are using them and what the harms are. So for Instagram, kids are using Instagram to kind of curate their identity. They're finding things that they like, following them, and posting things that they think define themselves. So they're really trying to use it as a way to kind of put out to the world who they think they are, right? And so that in itself is not necessarily particularly harmful, right? But they're getting interactions back, they're getting responses back, they're maybe seeing themselves posted in other ways. Actually, just had this happen to my son who was on his basketball team. There was a picture from the basketball team posted in just a pair of cell photos from a game, and he was wearing some shirt, and some kid from like Sonoma commented something negative about my son. Wasn't even a game between those two teams, and they came on. Two kids came on and piled on my son. And he saw it because I gave him Instagram. I gave him a very small amount of time on Instagram. He saw it. He would have seen it from the teammates anyways. But like, he doesn't need that experience. Like, why are we doing this to kids, right? Like, this is not good for them. So anyway, that's one of the ways that Instagram is impacting kids. It feels like a small thing. You wouldn't know that. I didn't know that was going to happen. So it's a good thing to understand. So anyway, body image issues. And then they're also being contacted by strangers. They're getting unwanted contact, unsafe or inappropriate contact coming out of the woodwork just from people they don't know. So TikTok, like Alex said, it's brain rot, it's endless scroll. It's primarily consuming for entertainment purposes. I don't know a lot of people actually posting much on TikTok. They maybe post like haul videos when they go and shop or something. But they're consuming. It's being used as like a way to just get through bored time and just waste time. So many kids lose hours and hours and hours. I mean, not just kids, but kids are definitely very sucked into this. If you can click. Yeah, so it's being used by kids that are too young, and it's known. TikTok does do sweeps occasionally, but it's just get right back on because there's no age verification features. And then teens will also admit that it's extremely, they know it. I mean, my older teen had it and removed it because it was just too much. And so these kids are also, they will self-admit that this is just hard. It's that endless role. And then Snapchat. Okay, so yeah, Alex mentioned Snapchat. It is being used to coordinate hangouts and that kind of thing. It's very common starting around 8th grade, on for kids to be coordinating their social activities through Snapchat. A lot of times people are like, you don't give phone numbers. That's weird. You give your snaps. So that's how people are. And then this is one of the issues, right? Then you can see whoever you're connected with, where they are, and if they're hanging out without you, right? So that's one of the things is like, you can see all your friends are over at the mall and nobody told you they were going or whatever. So that FOMO thing is one of the things feeling left out. And I know actually kids that have deleted for that. It's just like doesn't fit. And then it also suggests it's very gamified. So you get more points for interacting with it more. So that brings the kids back every day, multiple times per day. You're being notified all the time. So it's super gamified. Also, it's encouraging people to connect with strangers. It's like suggesting, oh, your friend's friend. And so that's how you get connected often because that will increase your score. And then you're connected with these people that you don't know. And talking to my 17-year-old, they were like, that is 100% where all of that, the bad stuff comes, is like your friend's friend, because you don't actually know if that's a friend. Like, so I'm going to talk about sextortion just for a minute. If you don't know what sextortion is, it's rampant on Snapchat. I mean, rampant. It's happening enough that like each county has a team that is responding to these things. And what it is effectively somebody befriends a kid on Snapchat or some other app. They gain trust with that kid and then they request an illicit photo or video. And when the kid provides it, they immediately say they're going to out the kid, they're going to send it to all their friends. They know what school they're in because it's in their profile, and they know their contacts because they're friends, and so they can see all their contacts. And then they demand some amount of money. So those are some of the lawsuits that are also active right now. And Snapchat actually has a dedicated page on their website about sextortion. That's how common it is. And so, yeah, I talked about the strangers, and then they're also buying drugs. So, for when we were growing up, it was maybe like somebody's cousin or whatever that was how people would have to find drugs. Now it's like the friend of the friend on Snapchat, somebody that you know on Snapchat. And because of the disappearing nature of the messages on Snapchat, this is a place where they can go and feel okay about making those kind of purchases. And so that's primarily where those things are happening. Okay, Discord. Discord, like Alex talked about, a lot of gamers or people with very specific interests will come and join a group to talk about their interests, maybe meet some other people that like the same thing. It seems pretty innocuous, but then if you click, there's a bunch of other things that are potentially going to come up. And if you click again, so again, they're going to be connected with strangers potentially, and then those people will again gain trust and then maybe expose them to the things that that you don't want them to be exposed to. So it's really important to know the breadth of what's happening on these different apps as you're considering or guiding your kids through using these different technologies. And then again, this is another place where sex happens. Roblox is a place that leads to Discord often because Roblox is a social gaming system, and so people do kind of potentially meet strangers on Roblox, and then that can launch. I know people where kids have launched into Discord, so it's just something to be aware of. And middle schoolers in particular are susceptible to a lot of these issues because their frontal lobes aren't developed yet. Okay, we all know this as people that have had middle schoolers, they're kind of making crazy decisions all the time, right? And they are not able to regulate very well. And so their brains really just don't have the ability yet to manage this technology. They just don't. They cannot do it. So it's not like, oh, you're doing a bad job, kid, because you can't make the right decisions. Their reasoning just isn't fully developed yet. So they don't understand the risks. So we really have to guide them through this stuff. And social media is taking advantage of that. Yeah. And so we need to make some changes as a community. It's something that we have to do because, like we said, the tech companies, there are lawsuits now, there will be responses, who knows what kind of seatbelts will be developed over the next few years, but they're going to take their time because they're making a lot of money from this, right? And so in the meantime, it's impacting our kids' well-being. The academic outcomes have tanked since the social media has become ubiquitous in people's pockets, and then depression, anxiety, self-harm have all increased significantly. And spending a lot of extended time has been proven to really impact these. So it's really time for us. It's hard. It's such a hard job. But as parents, and caregivers and teachers and pediatricians, everybody's it's got to be all hands on deck to help protect our kids and do the best that we can for them.
So usually after Rebecca talks, everyone's like, oh man. Um, um, but what we're here to do is not stay on how bad it feels or how bad it is or could potentially be, but to kind of really focus on what we can do and what we should do. There's a lot of things happening in the world today that we might not like and don't have control over. This is something we have control over, and doing it in a community works really, really well. So the next question that we often get is whose responsibility is it? For a long time, the messaging has sort of been, well, the app developers, it's their job. They're building a product that is not safe. And for a long time, that's sort of how we've looked at it. And again, what's happening is that very slowly people are waking up to the fact that there has to be change on the design level of the apps. And there has to be change across states and national legislation, but those are slow moving machines. And we can be excited that there's lots of stuff happening right now. Actually, we were just talking that there's all kinds of advocacy calls this week on all these different groups, and that's a really exciting thing. It shows that there is a shift. We are in a tipping point right now of having these conversations, but those are slow. And the companies that are designing these things are not going to take our kids' development or needs into consideration. So the people that have to do something and who have control over it is the parents. So if you haven't said yes to social media yet, we want you to keep saying no. And we want you to say no until at least 16, if not longer. There is actually no data at any point that says social media is good at any point. So there are people like the American Association of Pediatrics, Jonathan Haidt, G20, Kempe, people who are like, we should just delay this until forever because we don't know. And the parents in the room who use these apps might be like, yeah, it's not good for the grown-ups either. But the question always comes out, what about the good things about social media? And I was a very early Instagram adopter. I loved Instagram for a really, really long time. The Instagram 10 years ago is not the Instagram today. And when I started using it, I was a grown up with a fully formed brain that even had problems dealing with turning it off. Our kids don't stand a chance by using these devices, and it's not fair for us to expect them to do something that they can't. And so that's why we really, really want parents to delay. So if you haven't, keep going. You can get informed. You can learn more about the different apps. We have resources on our table at the back if you want to learn about these different apps. We have an e-packet that we put together for you guys that you can scan the QR code at the end that you can just start to learn about these things. And that also has tools on how to talk to your kids about this. Like, this is why we want to delay this. Listen to your gut. If you're like, this doesn't feel right, you're probably right. You are. And then we want you to get together with other parents. Social media is such a problem because it is a social beast. And no parent, no matter who you are, how strong your values are, if your child is telling you, I'm the last one, I'm being left out, I'm not being invited to social situations, no parent is going to say, oh, okay, like this is really hard, but that's what we need to do hard things. And it's much easier when we do it together. And you guys are really lucky to have smartphone free kids Monterey Bay. And although their messaging is around smartphones right now, the idea is about intentional tech choices. And no matter where you are on that continuum of making choices around technology, you can come together with parents and delaying social media until the end of middle school or high school or whenever is one of those things you can do together. Okay. Now, if you have using social media, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Discord, it really is okay. And if there's an issue with it, it really is a possibility for you to do something about it. One of the awesome things that we have is that we are still the grown-ups and we are still the parents, and we're allowed to change our mind. And we're allowed to say, hey, I learned something about this that doesn't feel good. You're also allowed to do something different with a younger child than you did with an older child. We're also giving you permission to do that. You might get, that's not fair. But that's how it is in our house. Our 8th grader was like, hey, you gave my older brother Instagram when he was in 8th grade. And I was like, yep, I did. He's like, am I gonna get it? I'm like, nope. And he's like, but that's really unfair. And I'm like, I know it's unfair, but I've learned more. And you have ADHD, which I know makes it even harder to turn these things off. And you are not ready to manage this app the way that your brother potentially did. So the answer is still no.
That's basically what this slide does. I mean, I have the same situation in my house where, I have my older kid, I have to parent him very differently to my younger kid who has ADHD, and I just have to be much more strict. So, okay, next slide. So, I actually, one of my roles at ScreenSense is working with parents to help reel in tech use. And so I sit with parents and help set up tools on their phones. Uh, and so, the way to approach this problem is really, you really have to do it carefully and slowly. So if your kid is overusing, and you can kind of apply this broadly, it doesn't just have to be social media, right? If you're having, concerns about your kids' use, first identify your main concern. Is it overuse, just like battles when they have to put it away? Is it distraction or attention issues, like not being able to manage their time with homework, that kind of thing? Is it, you think or you suspect they're using while you're sleeping, while they're supposed to be sleeping? What they're being exposed to or who they're talking to potentially online, or are there more serious signs of potential addiction happening? Our go-to when you're first starting this is to say, number one, protect sleep. The first thing to do is get devices out of the bedrooms at night. Have them physically with you as a parent and or in a central location. We keep ours in the kitchen, but just make it a rule that that has to go away and hold that rule for as long as they're. It's a really great way to go. Protecting their sleep makes all of the other things better and easier to manage. So that's always the number one thing. But think about what's the main issue that you want to address first and tackle one thing at a time. Don't try to go full hog and take everything away and deal with like a kid that's losing their mind. Just deal with one issue at a time and they'll start to get the program, right? Parents are serious. They're, even if they get upset that you've taken something away, you hold it. You know, I'm doing the right thing here and just hold your ground, and they'll get with the program just like they do at school. So some things to look for in terms of warning signs. So it's like screen use replacing sleep or meals or other basic needs. Secretive use, if you see them sneaking off, or definitely like shutting the door, they don't want you to see their screen. Irritability, constantly being on, so you're like can't even have a meal with them without them scrolling, those kind of things. And then there's the like potential shutdown, like you could see. Those kind of, if you're seeing like a real shift in like grades and mood, something might have happened online that you're not aware of, and it would be good to sort of try to understand better if something, and those that can really impact the mood. So if you're seeing some of those shifts, it's really good to talk to your kid and find out did something fine. We talk about it as so 3 ways to reel it in. Number one, remove. Just take the app away or the device away. That's kind of the cleanest solution. But then there's always ways to limit with tech tools, with like physical boundaries or rule boundaries in the house. And then you need to coach. It's really important to be leaning into coaching, and we'll talk more about that. But all of this needs to go with communication with your kids and explaining why it is that you're doing it. So you can remove it. Alex told you this, like you're the parents, you gave it to them, you can take it away. So just feel empowered that that is your role, that is you being a good parent. If you decide this is not working well, I'm seeing how this is impacting you, and I don't feel good about it. So we're going to make a change, we're going to take it away. And you might have to maneuver this in different ways, depending on your kid, depending on the age. But ultimately, you are paying for the phone, I assume, right? You're paying for the service. You're paying for, you've provided it to them. And it's your job to protect them, right? You can choose to take it away. And then you don't want to do this in like a real authoritarian, way. Generally, you want to keep your relationship intact, because it's really, really important. to have that communication. And so help them understand what it is that you're concerned about. Really work on educating. It's so important to talk to them about all of those harms that I showed on social media. The thing is, they might be exposed to those whether or not they have social media themselves, right? There's the potential that they'll see it on somebody else's device. And it's really important that they feel like they can come to you to talk to you if something happens online that they're not comfortable with. And so you want to maintain that relationship and you want them to know you're going to protect them as much as so next, limit. So you can limit the locations, like we said, maybe you say you're not, can't use your laptop in your bedroom, we're gonna do it just out in the open room. Set a downtime, which I'll talk about. You can turn on time limits, you can turn off notifications. And then, maybe you want to allow social media, some apps, but only allow it on a home device. Like I notice at home. So it's not in their pocket and it's going with them, but they have some amount of usage in a stationary place. So that's one way that you think about them. And then, I talked about this, so important, protect sleep. I mean, like so many things improve once you do this. So first step, most important, do this. If you have younger kids, make sure they know this is the rule forever. Okay. This is the stuff that can get tricky for parents. Some people don't have as much trouble as others, but there are tools that are set up to help parents with this issue. Apple ScreenSense and Google Family Link work to help monitor how much time the kids spend on their apps, when downtime is, so that the phone essentially becomes not functional at a certain time of night, and then it wakes up again in the morning. And so there are ways that you can limit which apps they can install, how much time they get on each app, and that kind of thing. So it's important to know that these tools exist. We have links in our packet that will help guide you through how to use these different tools. And then we suggest a 20-minute max per day on social media if you do allow your kid to have it. I made my kid 20 minutes, and then I dialed it back to 10. And now he doesn't use it at all, which is amazing. I think he's just like, whatever, 10 minutes is enough. And then turn off the notifications. Okay. And these are really good to teach your kids about. These safeguards. Now, set the account private so that only people that they're only talking or sharing. So this is one way you can give them social media, but put these safeguards in place so that what they are sharing, they're sharing with people that they actually know in real life. And then, reduce followers. That way the social turmoil that they're experiencing when nobody likes their stuff, right? Like how big is that versus, so if they're connecting with a small group, that's just like the stakes are lower, right? And so it's a little bit more protective. And then teaching them about how personal details can be used against them. This is really like that extortion stuff or just getting tricked even. Like my kid had somebody reach out to him and be like, I know you from something. And he's like, I don't know who this person is. But they can get information from profiles, right? And so then they can just get like messed with by it. And so think about kind of educating your kid about how that information can be used against them potentially, right? It's just important for them to know and have that awareness to shift kind of what their understanding is of what's happening on these different. I don't know. Do your kids have Apple Watches? Raise hands, Apple Watches? Yeah. So, just be aware of what's on there. Because if they're wearing an Apple Watch during school, say they're in the middle of a test and they get a notification that's like something that might distress them, and how's that going to impact? So be aware of what's on the Apple Watch and what's potentially able to come through, especially while they're at school, and just know that there are parental controls that extend to the Apple Watch as well. And, just to point it out, in an iPhone can be set up with just talk, like phone, messaging. When I gave my kid an iPhone at the end of 8th grade, we got phone, message, maps, calendar, and Spotify. And that's it. No browser. It's mostly like no browser, no games. Because he doesn't need that in his pocket while he's walking around into school or whatever. It's just not necessary. It just takes them out of the real experience that we want them to experience while they're in this brain development. They need this 3D, socially interactive, embodied experience. And so to just want to point out, you have this level of control as parents to set it up. Thanks for coming. Teach them that it's there for a reason. If you give it to them, it's not for just playing, but they can do that kind of stuff at home or in limited times. Okay, last tool that is really useful. So both cell services and routers, Wi-Fi routers, have the ability to set schedules per device. So I use this for my kids where I have a shutdown time of the Wi-Fi for their devices. There's a schedule for each of them for their devices, and then a general schedule for our home entertainment devices. And then there's also this cell service schedule, and I can shut the cell service off. So this, for me, just gives me comfort when I go to bed that the devices are empty. We store them in the kitchen, and so I'm not physically taking them, but I'm comforted in the fact that I know they're disconnected when I use them. So these things can be done. Again, we have links to these tools on our and modeling and coaching. It's so important that we kind of are demonstrating the skills that we want our kids to be using. So, and behaviors that we want them to be using. So it's like once they're in middle school, I don't know about you guys, but my kids started getting real vocal about what I was doing and if I was living up to what I was preaching and expecting from them. Kids get real bold about, well, but you're scrolling Instagram. I mean, this literally led me to delete Instagram because I was like, I don't want you to have it. Okay, I don't want it either. Because I couldn't justify what it was doing. So it's really important also to talk about how it pulls you in. Like, oh my gosh, I lost so much time scrolling today. And it puts you on the same team with your kid so that they feel comfortable and they don't feel like you're kind of against them, right? It's both of you against these apps or like protecting yourselves from that. And so talking about what your own struggles are with technology with these apps in particular, how did you feel if you saw something that was uncomfortable on Instagram? Sharing those things with your kids is super helpful for giving them the language and even the perspective to think about what they're going to be consuming. And so you really want to teach them that they can like limit their own time, that they can delete an app if it's not serving them, and really ask them, how did you feel after you were sitting on that, So you want them to start separating their experience from just a blind kind of consumption.
So my 17-year-old often looks at me and he's like, you wish that smartphones just didn't get invented, right? And I was like, yeah, I just kind of do. I wish they didn't exist. I wish I didn't have to have these conversations. I wish I didn't have to like come here and talk to you about this. Actually, I like that part, but I wish we could talk about something else. But we can't not talk about this anymore. It's not optional because technology is impeding and impacting every single part of how our kids are coming and growing up in the world today, from how they're learning about themselves, what they're learning at school. And so it has to be part of our conversations. And, we have to look at what we're doing ourselves because they are watching every single thing that we do. And when they're little, they're watching if we happen to be like, talking to them, but like kind of over their shoulder looking at something. They are watching when we're driving in the car and texting. They're watching if the phone is on the table while we're having family dinner. And so if The parental limits and controls that Rebecca shared kind of make your mind go loopy, which they do for me. I'm very glad that she's my friend and that she's my tech support. My approach to tech in my house is that we talk about technology. You probably don't want to talk about it anymore, but we talk about it. And like Rebecca said, the older your kids get, they're going to call you on if you are not walking your talk. And so I have 20-minute limit on my Instagram. I have my tech bedtime set at 9:30 that it goes off with everybody else's. And doing that as a family made it about us against tech, not me against my kids. And changing that dynamic is really, really important because the more that you come at this like, I'm the parent that knows something, you may alienate them, and very, precocious, interested, curious kids are gonna call you. And so one way you can start to do that is really to talk about how hard this is for us. And what we want you to do is just start to think about how you could talk to your kids about technology. These are just a few little prompts in the e-packet that we have. There are more, and we actually link to a blog post on our website that has a bunch of resources that you can share with your child, with your middle school, actually. Videos you can watch, books you can read, so that you're not the one saying, hey, this is coming from me, like, hey, can we look at this together? One of the books that really helps with this is called The Amazing Generation. How many of you know about the anxious generation and the work of Jonathan Haidt? Okay, so his book kind of like broke the universe 2 years ago. And he has written a new book called The Amazing Generation. It came out 3 months ago, and it's written for children, partnered with Catherine Price, who wrote the book How to Break Up with Your Phone. It's an awesome, awesome book, and it's a book that we wish every third through fifth grader in the United States could read. We are urging schools to put it on your summer reading list. We're urging librarians to put it in the library because it's engaging kids in a way that we can't as adults do. It's what's it called? It's a graphic novel, and it's interesting. It's written in a really kind of engaging way. It's also written from the perspective of some teenagers who were like, hey, I did this, I didn't like it. So if you want a way to start talking about technology, buy the book. It's on Amazon. I think it's like $11. And it's a great, easy read. If you have kids that are younger, you can actually read chapters with it. And for kids that are older, you can just kind of pick out points and say, hey, can you read this? Let's talk about it. So the key to what we've talked about tonight is not doing this by yourself. It's really, really hard to be the one person in your home with your child trying to make changes around technology because of how social all of this stuff is. It works up to a certain point. Parents tend to find that they have some sort of control over like until third grade, fourth grade, and around fourth and fifth grade when kids become more independent, when they become more autonomous, when they want to do things by themselves, is often when parents who have kind of said yes to delaying start to go, well, I don't know how to do that. And so what we really want parents to start thinking about is how to do this in community. And this is what in Jonathan Haidt's book he calls collective action, meaning that our action as a community is more impactful to everybody and the individual than doing it by yourself. And that's why we're really excited that we are able to say, you guys have an awesome opportunity here on the Monterey Peninsula. So you have a group, it's called Smartphone Free Kids. You can scan the QR code. They also have a table in the back. They have a pact that families can sign to delay smartphones. And we have a similar thing in Marin County. And the benefit of doing that is that as parents make these choices together, you're getting through those sticking points. And you're getting through those points where it gets a little hard. And if nobody has a smartphone in third or fourth grade, then nobody's saying I'm the last one. If nobody has a phone in fifth grade, then nobody's saying I'm the last one. And that's what we're trying to do with phones, with these phone packs. It can also be done with social media. So the small print on these packs is that it's not about all phones, that it's about the phones that are the stickiest and the apps that are on the phones that are the stickiest. So if you, for whatever reason, want your child to have a watch or a phone so that you can contact them because you've got dual household, because you've got logistics, having a device with talking text is not what we're talking about. We are talking about the phones, like what Rebecca said, that are sticky, the ones that have games, that have social media apps, and you can give a smartphone that does not have social media apps. Next. So, we love coming here and talking to schools, but kind of what's next is sort of up to you. And so we really want to encourage principals and superintendents and school districts to really start to work together to decide how a community can start to change these norms together. It's nothing that happens overnight, but it's a slow kind of realignment with the intentions to slow down technology. And so we've got some homework for you. And so the first one is to download our e-packet. It's about 13 pages of all kinds of information. A lot of it links to our website with different resources that are available 24/7 and they're free. They're also available in Spanish, so if you have Spanish-speaking families, that's one thing that we did this year that we're really excited about. And then we want you to think about reaching out to one other parent in the next week, in the next 2 weeks, just about something that you learned tonight that you didn't know. You don't have to go reading a book, although it'd be nice if you read The Anxious Generation if you haven't read it yet, but that can be hard to do. So just one parent that you're like, I learned this thing. And then in the next week, check in with your kiddo. So if your child has social media apps, have them show you. Be like, hey, can you show me what you're doing? Can I, don't go home after this talk and be like, these ladies told me this isn't good and like rip it out of their hand and delete it. Like that's not what we're doing now. We're talking about intentional communication and setup. So ask them if they're on Instagram, be like, hey, who do you follow? Like how many followers do you have? You might see that your child has like 780 followers. And you're like, who are these people? One of the things that came out of these lawsuits and the stories of the families, which were worst case scenarios, is that most of the parents said they had no idea what their children were doing online. So if you do nothing else from tonight, figure out what your children are doing online and pay attention. The greatest factor that you can have in creating a digital citizen who is healthy and turns into a flourishing, amazing adult is that they have a supportive person who is paying attention to what's happening for them. And for our kids, it's happening online and in the real world. So when you ask how was school today, maybe in the evening, if they've been online, be like, so what'd you do? What'd you do on that video game? Or what'd you watch? Or what'd you do homework? Or what'd you see on YouTube? Those are the kind of ways to start this conversation. So we are thrilled to have been here. We want to open this to Q&A. Ask whatever you want. Do you want to walk around with your group? We do have a table at the back, which has all kinds of handouts. Please grab one. There's a new one just from 2 nights ago from an AI presentation that we did, which is very new for us too. So definitely grab that if you want. Well, so one of the things that we say is check in before you check out, right? Most of the things I'm doing on my phone are for my family and my children to get people where they need to go, to pay the bills, to, I don't know, figure out where I can pick someone up. I am not scrolling on Instagram. So what you can do is just kind of say like, hey, I need to check this thing or I need to do something. So just be that you can communicate with them what you're doing on your devices. And if it's time to scroll YouTube for 30 minutes, like go scroll YouTube for 30 minutes. But just start to name what you're doing so that they are aware that you're doing something practical instead of just consuming, right? Like you're not disappearing into it. So that's a great point to bring up.
I love what you guys showed a little bit earlier about the screen usage report. That is I to know how much what kind of time spent on each individual app. First of all, it hits you with how your daily usage, which can be shocking, and then it goes to what you're.
And actually setting up the devices just to verify what you're spending time on screens is a great way to start the conversation. To be like, hey, we're gonna set this up so that we can check in. And less than 2 weeks, check in, and then you're like, oh my God, I spent like 7 hours texting. If you look at a mom's time on a screen, there's a significant amount of time texting, and it's not about like the latest TV show, right? So it's how we're doing things logistically. Another question? Yeah.
Do you recommend managing multiple accounts? I have students who so I have 10, I have, you know, make multiple accounts, like every account may not try, or how do you?
I mean, are you asking from a parent perspective? Okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I would wonder what the purpose of multiple accounts is. I would get curious about it, you know? I mean, if you have the opportunity to talk to kids who are willing to tell you that, I'd be curious to ask. My guess would be that they have to. That just, oh no, that they have different interests. And so they're kind of curating different identities sort of through those different accounts. And you know, the Finsta, it's a fake Insta. So this is a lot of high school kids have a Finsta, which is their public profile that their parents know about. And then they have their real Insta, which is their parents don't know about it, right? Or, I mean, so I don't think my kid has one. I couldn't tell you for sure. But yeah, so there's different things that they're trying to convey. Again, I think this goes to your relationship with your kid. So much of this is about like being in communication with your kid, trying to understand what they're doing, what they're getting out of these apps, and just being curious. You know, and being open, right, and non-judgmental to the extent that you can with keeping them safe in understanding that this is a part of their life. So it's really want to be able to keep that relationship healthy so that they're coming to you and they're not having to have secret multiple accounts. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if some people are also like managing relationships differently.
I think one response to that too is that if you're taking more of a slower approach to social media, you can get to a point where your child does not have 10 TikTok accounts. So a lot of in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot of just like getting the app and the kids can set it up any way they want to. If you are using an Apple device or even an Android device with a Google link and you have your child's age and birthday set up correctly, there are certain functions in these apps that don't work. And so, for example, if you have an iPhone set up for the correct age, and let's say it's less than 13, and you have the App Store removed, they can't download TikTok. They just can't do it. And so that's what we want parents to start thinking about is that there's a slow way to roll these things out. And if you set up the devices that there actually are some parental controls that work that way. So then if your child does want TikTok, you can look at it because they have to then put a false birth date in it, right? Like you actually are lying. Kids are saying they're older than they are in order to open an account. So if you have sort of safeguards built into how you're making these tech choices, then you're reducing the plausibility of like multiple TikTok.
And I'll just say like time limiting is another way. You can't go through 8 accounts in 20 minutes. So
Is there legislation?
Excuse me, let me this one. Okay, so as of July 1st this year, there's a law coming out that all schools in California are required to have some sort of smartphone policy for personal devices. That's the extent of the wording. It only relates to public schools. It's not for independent schools, but that is the general consensus, that there needs to be some sort of policy limiting personal device use at school. Currently, there is a group of really passionate, amazing legislators in Sacramento who are trying to get Bill AB 1644, which is an amendment to the current law that's going into effect on the 1st of July, which would require a bell-to-bell policy for K through 12th grade schools. And a bell-to-bell policy is that phones and watches are turned off and away from the first bell to the last bell. And the reason that that is important is because the challenging part of allowing devices in the school day during breaks and lunchtime is that they are actually showing that kids going onto their devices during those breaks is impacting the next class, right? So imagine you're on Snapchat, right? You've been in history class, your phone's put away, you've got 8 minutes to get to biology. You go out the door, you should go to the bathroom, probably maybe get a drink of water, and instead you get your phone out and you notice that you have like, your friends have like a snap streak of like 325. And if you don't post right away, then you're gonna lose your snap streak. So between going from that class to that class, you're not thinking about what your teacher just said, you're thinking about Snapchat. And then you get to class, and then you're not thinking about what that next teacher is about to talk to you, you're still thinking about Snapchat. And so they are showing that the devices need to be away and gone for the whole school day. They need parents to be cheerleaders and talking about this. If you are interested in the policy around this and what's happening at the state level, there are multiple advocacy groups in California that are all coming together with passionate parents. I'm happy to share them with you what they're called. They need people to be excited. I think that you guys have, did you guys sign up with anything? Okay, so the one that we would recommend, and you can just keep this, there's a group called Distraction Free School. It's a national group, but they have a coalition in California. And they are in Sacramento, they are writing letters, they're sending me emails, they're sending the two of them emails, and they are really, really trying to get this bill passed. Because it would be really, really important to kind of amend this. California has a grade of D when it comes to our phone-free school policies. There are several other states that are way farther ahead. California was one of the first to put any kind of law in place, but we are now sunk to the bottom of the list. So if this is something you're interested in, it would also be awesome to start looking at people in the primaries and that are kind of talking about this. This is one way that you can.
The PG middle school. So, yeah. Other questions?
You guys for being here. I have a question for Mr. Rose. Yes, for our total, it would be relatively small turnout. And I'm just curious, we have this dream that some kind of
It's interesting. There's a kind of a daily dichotomy that we go through where when students kind of arrive on campus at 7:30, there's quite a bit of talking going on, but there's a lot of sunken heads. Everybody's kind of playing games or they're playing collaborative. That bell rings, they get in there, and the volume level goes through the roof. The hallways outside, that kind of stuff, and you see the eyes light up and start physical interactions with one another. I love that. First thing they grab though when that last bell rings, their watch. After we don't let them touch it in the building, they get out of the building, they off on it. So I haven't seen any really appreciable change other than there's a little bit of competition Now, for cell phones, that would involve e-bikes and e-scooters. That is kind of the hot thing in middle school level right now. Hopefully not.
So we're gonna answer that question in just a second, but there are kids where it's pretty cool to not have these devices. So if we are really excited about parents of like kindergarten through third graders, they are on fire right now. And it is really exciting to see how adamant that they are, that they're like, we're not doing this. So a quick story of progress, and this might be something that you guys can think about either here. So we are in Mill Valley, which is a small little town north of San Francisco. And we've been kind of doing this collective action thing for about 2 years. And last spring, about this time last year, one of the fifth grade, we have ambassadors at different schools who we meet with once a month and we talk about this stuff. And one of the fifth grade moms was like, I am not giving a phone for fifth grade graduation. That is something that we've normalized somehow, that that's the time that you give a phone. And this mom was really, really adamant. She's like, I'm not doing it. And so what she did is she kind of found the other ambassadors. We have 5 elementary schools that funnel into 1 middle school. So she got an ambassador at every one of the elementary schools, and they started with the girl moms first and got girls involved. And then after a while, they kind of got other kids involved. And they used our pact, which is to delay smartphones with social media until as long as you can, but we want it to be until the end of middle school. They got between those 5 elementary schools, 25%, 27%. They had 27% of parents signed that phone pact. Doesn't seem like a whole lot. The percentage needed for a tipping point of action is 25%. You need 25% of people to do something for it to impact more and more people. So they were pretty excited. The fifth graders graduated. They had a whole lot of people who didn't give phones. They went to 6th grade at this middle school. So in December of this year, 3 months after they started 6th grade, we did a survey to kind of see, did this have an impact? Did this do anything? This is what we found. We found that only 37% of 6th graders at the middle school actually had a phone, which is a smartphone, which is compared to 57% of the national average. So almost 60% of 6th graders have smartphones. So that was an exciting number because not all those people had signed this phone pact, but they were impacted by the decisions of other parents. But what we found out was more interesting than that. So we had feedback from the principal and from teachers who said that their disciplinary problems for the 6th grade had gone half, had decreased by half. The number of complaints and paper issues of things that happened on the playground and this had also decreased by. Test scores had gone up, grades across all of 6th grade had gone up, and they were noticing a significant difference in the energy of the 6th grade class. But it wasn't just the adults who noticed, it was the 7th and 8th graders who also noticed. They're like playing, they're like talking to each other during recess. And so what happened is that this has now prompted the current 5th grade parents in Mill Valley who are going to the same middle school next year to sign this pact and keep going. And I think we have like 74% of parents that have now signed this pact. We have 68 in 4th grade, 50 in 4th grade, in 3rd grade, and you can see on a chart that like the number of phone packs for 7th and 8th grade is like down here and all the rest is up here. And so what's happening is that this wave of parents is changing the norm, right? And so that's sort of what we mean by collective action. That's how communities can do this to start to get people together to be like, look, we're doing this without it. The kids have cash. They don't need Apple Pay to go to the store. And now our high school is going bell-to-bell phone free. That was voted 2 weeks ago. So it's, one pebble affects the rest. So.
And then for all of us who the ship has sailed, if we can't do that, we got to talk to each other. we just gotta talk about it, like, it's so important, find somebody to talk to, because it's hard to parent. We're all screwing it up constantly, like, we feel like we're failing, but we're not, we're all in the same soup. We are paying attention, you guys are here, that is the right thing to do, just pay attention, talk to your kids about it, we're not gonna do this right, because there is no right. It's a really hard thing to do, but like Alex said, find somebody that you can talk to. It's so helpful. It takes the shame out of it and you just feel more empowered to make the right decision.
Well, that's part of your homework, right?
Yeah.
Read talk to one first.
Can you believe we used to drive without phones all the time? It's wild.
Like, as you're making these decisions, are you making this decision for your child? Or are you making this, you need that to be available? But, you know,
I just had a question for the administrators here.
So, education will talk about, in high school, we really had last year and after, not where we want, how to ourselves, and currently they're allowed to speak break time. Last year, we were allowed, actually, after September, this school year, then we were allowed them during passing period. And really, we will see and go over what you, so as of January, we only break. We definitely do that there. It's really wanted to put the actual approach and let people see where we go here. And if there is legislation at the state level, but I feel, it was good in the sense that even when that legislation came out, and knew it was coming, and we were already in good place. I think some of those.
a lot of the school policies are what they are because that's what parents want. Really, my biggest pushback to these phone-free school policies was often parents. And so as that's changing, and if that is changing, that's what we saw in the Tam Union High School District, is that there were a lot of parents with current high schoolers who have a 9th, 10th, and 11th grader who are, it's an open campus, it's gonna be tricky, like, they have to bring cash to school, they're gonna have to figure it out. They were really kind of like, how's this supposed to work, and we've so relied on this, and kids need to learn how to deal with it. But then you had parents who had kids at the middle school who were like, we're not doing phones. You're gonna have 9th graders who don't have phones. So can you not allow them at school? And this is a slow moving process, and that's how it's going to work. But the more we're talking about it, and if there are more parents who are like, hey, we want to support schools in going phone free, that is helpful to administrators if they want to have that kind of.
Absolutely. By the way, Alex and Rebecca are going to be at Robert Down tomorrow night. Kind of starting that. You do the groundswell there. Do I have anybody else with any questions, any comments? No? Okay.
Forty-four in Assembly, the Education Committee, they held the bill, they didn't want to. So amended it down to a ban only for TK through 8th grade. We have until August to write into our legislators, and some of member Don is on the Education Committee, so we definitely look there. And if you want to write in, send a letter, talk to us afterwards, we'll show you how to do it. It's really easy. But TK through 8 is not where we're seeing lack of development. Nationwide, that's high school where. Thank you for that update. Yeah, it's very new. You're right. So if this is of interest to you, please find Caitlin, because this is also the community approach to this. Like, really working on an elementary school, like that's your kids are little, right? So if there is a parent who is really passionate and excited about this and be like, hey, I want to help you, then that's how you start to get parents of older kids together to be like, look, we're not talking about delaying smartphones, but we're talking about this part.
You guys, thank you. Let's give Alex for the best round of applause.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Big up to all of them. And there is some,
A raffle.